Cuba celebrates the 66th anniversary of the revolution that marked the beginning of a new era in the Caribbean island. In Yemen, Houthi forces shot down a U.S. drone worth over $32 million, the second such device struck in the last 72 hours. And in the United States, at least 10 people were killed and more than 30 injured after a multiple hit and run in New Orleans. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Cuba celebrates the 66th anniversary of the revolution that marked the beginning of a new era in the Caribbean island. This January 1st, Cuban citizens commemorate the beginning of a new era led by Fidel Castro and Ernesto Che Guevara, who became symbols of resistance. During the day, the celebrations are accompanied by cultural events, parades, and conferences that highlight the achievements and the challenges that still persist in the country. In this regard, for more than 6 decades, the Cuban people have faced significant challenges, while they have achieved relevant progress in the areas of education and health. The Caribbean community, CARICOM, reiterated its support for Haiti, affirming that it will continue working to strengthen its national institutions and congratulating the country on the 221st anniversary of its independence. This way, CARICOM's Secretary General Carla Barnett expressed solidarity with the Haitian people and the community's willingness to collaborate with the Caribbean nation. In this regard, Barnett highlighted CARICOM's objective to help Haiti move forward in the search for peace, security, and social progress. In addition, the Secretary General congratulated the Haitian people on 221 years of independence, stating the date is a source of pride and celebration due to Haitians' indomitable resilience who persevere despite facing multiple challenges. Mexico lost the dispute panel with the United States and Canada 2023 over the decree issued by former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, which prohibits the commercialization of genetically modified corn for human consumption. Antonio Aranda brings us details.
President Claudia Sheinbaum informed that Mexico will continue to defend native corn after losing the dispute panel with the United States and Canada over the ban on the importation of transgenic corn for human consumption.
Mexico is intrinsically linked culturally by our origin, by what our native peoples of yesterday and today are, and the resistance with corn. Corn is Mexico. That is why it is said that without corn there is no country. So protecting Mexico from planting transgenic corn is fundamental. There are already decrees, but now we want to take it to the Constitution and make it very clear that in Mexico it is forbidden to plant transgenic corn.
Claudia Sheinbaum explained that one of her government's objectives is to guarantee self-sufficiency in corn for human consumption, taking care of corn biodiversity.
We are impressed by what is most important for Mexico. Even though we evidently believe that it has health effects and that this must be decreased, but the part that is fundamental to protect is the seeding of corn in Mexico.
Mexico is the cradle of corn domestication, which is why it is important to take care of the original genetic biodiversity, says this specialist.
The Creole corn that is grown mainly in southeastern Mexico only has yields of 1 to 5 tons per hectare. That is why Mexico defends from 2020, when the decree published by President López Obrador came out, that the decree was more to prohibit glyphosate. But there was also a section that did not allow the importation of genetically modified corn.
One consequence of banning the importation and planting of transgenic corn for human consumption could be the implementation of countervailing duties against Mexico. However, with the constitutional reform for the protection of white corn, Mexico can avoid the sanction.
The government has established through President Sheinbaum and the Secretary of Agriculture that in February a constitutional law initiative will be in the Chamber of Deputies where the planting of genetically modified corn is prohibited, which does not contravene the treaty with the United States and Canada, but is a power of Mexico.
In addition to the constitutional reform to protect native corn, Sheinbaum's government will promote agricultural production programs, provide free fertilizers, and increase the creation of small and medium corn, bean, and tomato producers, among other products. This also seeks to advance self-sufficiency in white corn, of which each Mexican consumes an average of 196 kilograms per year.
teleSUR, Ciudad de México.
As 2024 came to a close, several presidents of Latin America and the Caribbean bid farewell to the year by taking stock and announcing the most important projects for 2025. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, Colombian President Petro, and Nicaragua's Vice President Rosario Murillo sent messages to their respective peoples. The Mexican president stressed that the challenges initiated by the fourth transformation will not take a step back. President Gustavo Petro referred to his achievements, highlighting that 2.5 million people came out of poverty in his country. For her part, the Nicaraguan Vice President shared the joint message of President Daniel Ortega, assuring that they concluded a year of commitment to peace. In Ecuador, relatives of the 4 children abducted by the military hold President Daniel Noboa responsible for their death. The Attorney General's office confirmed that the human remains found in the coastal region belong to the children. After 21 days of national commotion, the suspicions of many were proved right despite the government's covering attempts. Precisely, graphic evidence and witnesses were constantly dismissed by the head of state, the defense minister, and the entire military high command, which referred to the serious crime as an incident. Furthermore, the relatives addressed President Noboa's decision to name the children national heroes, stressing it was made because he knew they were already dead. With the passing of time, outrage in Ecuador grows. After more than 11 hours, the Interior and Defense Ministries spoke about the crime that killed a promising youth football player, his brother, and 2 friends, one of them only 11 years old. After criminalizing them and their families, pointing to organized crime and questioning the responsibility of the parents, they were also late with the official statement. It is worth mentioning that none of them apologized. President Daniel Noboa still does not mention them. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Yemen, Houthi forces shot down a U.S. drone, a MQ-9 Raper, worth over $32 million, which constitutes the second such device struck in the last 72 hours. Precisely, the operation took place in the region of Marib, over its territorial waters, as confirmed by Yemeni military forces spokesman Yahya Sareh. This is the 14th drone destroyed since the beginning of the operation to support Gaza. They also reiterated that they will maintain the defensive strategy and will not cease the attacks until Israel's genocide in Palestine ends. In Palestine, a total of 45 patients from the Khan Yunis hospital in Gaza Strip were evacuated outside the Strip in order to receive medical treatment in the United Arab Emirates. The Palestinian Ministry of Health currently claims that several thousand people in Gaza are in need of medical treatment abroad as the health crisis in the region continues to worsen. The United Nations asserts that the situation has reached this point due to the constant and permanent attacks by the Israeli government on the Palestinian territory, which have severely weakened the country's infrastructure in various spheres such as medicine and public health care, and have forced the country to close most of its hospitals, while those that remain in operation are only partially functioning and are facing a myriad of shortcomings. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have taken a further step in their offensive against women's rights by announcing the closure of all non-governmental organizations employing women. The move, which comes on top of a previous ban on hiring Afghan women workers for alleged jihad violations, reflects a systematic pattern of repression since the regime took power in August 2021. The regime's Ministry of Economy has warned that any non-governmental organization that fails to comply with this new order will face revocation of its license to operate in the country. The United Nations has expressed its deep concern, stressing that these restrictions not only affect women but also exacerbate the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, where millions are dependent on humanitarian assistance. On Wednesday, South Korean authorities confirmed the identification of all 179 victims of the Jeju airplane crash. The Ministry of Health and Welfare of the Asian nation said that the 5 remaining unidentified victims had been recognized in the last few hours. In this regard, it specified it took forensic doctors 4 days to single out all the victims due to the conditions of the bodies as a result of the powerful explosion. The Jeju Air Flight 2216, which had taken off from Bangkok, Thailand on December 29, 2024, was carrying a total of 175 passengers and 6 crew members, which it touched ground with its landing gear down and crashed into a wall outside the runway at one airport in southwest Korea, leaving only 2 survivors. Italian authorities reported that at least 20 migrants are missing after a boat shipwreck off the island of Lampedusa. The Coast Guard said the chances of rescuing the missing people alive are very slim due to weather conditions. The first reports from the authorities showed that the boat left from Libya heading for Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. The migrants were originally from Egypt, Syria and Sudan. The Interior Ministry reported that to date, Italy has received about 66,000 migrants on boats coming from North Africa. Let's take a second short break, but first, teleSUR invites you to attend a special interview given by the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, to journalist Ignacio Ramonet today at 5 p.m. local time in Nicaragua and Mexico, at 6 p.m. local time in Colombia, Ecuador and Cuba, also at 7 p.m. in Venezuela and Bolivia, and at 8 p.m. in Argentina, Uruguay and Brazil. Only on teleSUR. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, at least 10 people were killed and more than 30 injured after a multiple hit and run in New Orleans early on Wednesday. Emergency services reported that the driver of a truck was traveling at high speed and ran over multiple people celebrating New Year's Eve at Bourbon Street in the city's French Quarter. The perpetrator proceeded to get out of his vehicle and fire shots. At least 2 officers were injured as police responded to the attacker, who was then reportedly killed. In the aftermath of the incident, U.S. President Joe Biden unveiled the FBI is proving the attack as an act of terrorism, while law enforcement are also investigating multiple suspected explosive devices linked to the hit and run.
It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. It was not a DUI situation. This is a more complex and more serious based on the information we have right now.
Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara said in an end-of-year speech that French forces will withdraw from the West African nation in January, making it the latest country to end military ties with a former colonial power.
We have decided on the concerted and organized withdrawal of French forces from Ivory Coast. As a result, the 43rd Bima Marine Infantry Battalion at Port-Bouet will be handed back to Ivory Coast's armed forces from January 2025. To mark this new stage in our Army's life, I have decided to name this camp after General Ouattara Thomas Diaquin, a soldier with an exceptional career, and the first ever Chief of Staff of the Ivorian Army.
On Tuesday, hundreds demonstrated again in Serbia to protest against the accidental death of 15 people. Demonstrators gathered around the railway station in Novi Sad, some 70 kilometers from Belgrade, the country's capital. On November 1st, a section of the roof collapsed there, killing 15 people and injuring several others. The rally, which made 15 stops in memory of each of the victims, calls for political and criminal responsibility. On the same day, the prosecutor's office indicted 13 people, including the former Minister of Construction, Goran Vesic. Russia has effectively ceased gas exports to Europe through Ukraine after Kyiv's refused to extend the existing transportation agreements. In regards to the measure that entered into force at 8 a.m. local time on January 1st, the Russian energy giant Gazprom confirmed that it is now technically and legally impossible to supply gas transiting through Ukraine. The end of the agreement signed on December 30, 2019, and the termination of all deals between Gazprom and Naftogaz, who was a unilateral Ukrainian decision which the country's energy ministry called a historic event that is taken in the interest of national security. In Argentina, among the many attacks by President Javier Milei on everything related to art and culture, cinema is perhaps the most damaged. Our correspondent Fabián Restivo has the details.
Este es el director de cine argentino.
This is Argentine film director Adrián Jaime. teleSUR spoke to him to find out how things are going in the audiovisual world, one of the sectors under attack by the government of Javier Milei.
Se vuelve difícil.
It becomes difficult to counter everything because you are not on equal footing for the fight.
Para la pelea.
Sus películas recuperan, entre
His films recover, among other things, the memories of the popular struggles in Argentina, which makes Adrián Jaime one of the government's main targets.
Del gobierno.
Y Adorni nos nombró básicamente como...
Adorni accused of having received $15,000 to make a documentary film, which is not true. Our film is called Burn Them. It is about the Cordobazo. We reconstruct those two historic days with the pure archive material. We did all the sound. We were working on the sound during the whole pandemic. Less and less is being filmed. This year, 5 films were filmed via the National Institute of Cinema and Audiovisuals, out of the usual 200.
De 200 que habitualmente hay.
Pero además el gobierno argentino.
The Argentinian government has also established a series of prohibitions for filming. You can talk about Perón, nor about the achievements of Kirchnerism, nor film with, for example, the popular singer Lali.
Es que es la batalla cultural. Una batalla que no está perdida.
There is a cultural battle, a battle that is not lost but is never settled. I don't believe that the 600,000 jobs that this industry generates, 600,000 direct jobs, plus another 400,000 indirect jobs, an important portion of the GDP, where jobs are generated not only for those who are in the front of the cameras, such as actors or directors, but for everything that is part of the audiovisual ecosystems.
Aquellos que están delante de las cámaras, los directores, los actores, sino para todo aquello que es parte del ecosistema audiovisual, Hoteles, la logística.
Hotels, logistics, carpenters, electricians. All of that at some point, due to the systematic attacks that have been taking place, is surely going to emerge as a second criticism.
Que viene habiendo, seguramente va a emerger como una profunda crítica.
La preocupación del
The director's concern is not only cinema, of course.
La industria cinematográfica argentina.
Argentina's film industry is going to be diminished. Today, we are in a process of resistance and of seeing how it can be sustained.
Apalancar lo que están.
We are trying to leverage what they are trying to destroy or what they have broken. International entities, the most diverse in Latin America, Europe, and Asia, have declared themselves in favor of sustaining, as Leonardo Sbaraglia said, not only Argentina cinema, but sustaining Argentina.
De también sostener la Argentina.
Desde Buenos Aires para Telesur, Fabián.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.